Marriages die in the conversations that never happen. That's a quote from Dr. John Gottman, who has studied thousands of couples, and I know he would agree it applies to pretty much any relationship. And if I could go back in time and change just one thing that I believe would have the greatest impact on preventing the death of my own marriage, it would be learning how to have those conversations. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but I also have no problem warning you because I know the fact that when one or both of you refuse to prioritize these conversations that we're going to talk about in just a minute, your relationship always suffers more than it needs to. This is why you fight about the smallest things, or maybe you don't fight at all, but your lack of conflict doesn't actually equal connection or closeness, does it? And if you were both actually honest, at least one of you probably doesn't feel like you can actually be honest with the other, do you? I believe you that you love each other, but a relationship needs more than just love to survive. It needs trust, and it needs actual intimacy, and it needs mutual respect and honesty, and we can both unintentionally block those things in different ways. But if both of you are willing to put in the right type of work, because we know that everything worthwhile requires some work, right? The most important things in life will always require effort and intentionality, and your relationship is no different. But if you're willing to try something new, you can have a different relationship starting today. I didn't say it was going to be easy, but just like anything in life, exercise, eating right, starting a new habit, saving for retirement, it's always harder at first, but it gets easier the more that you do it, right? And if you're willing to put in the work, I can promise you the fighting will decrease and the closeness will increase over time because you're both learning how to intentionally build trust instead of unintentionally breaking it. Okay, so one of the ways that we have those hard conversations is through a relationship check-in. So what is a relationship check-in and why is it important? A relationship check-in is simply a planned discussion, like Sunday evenings, where we are intentionally coming together as a team and reflecting and trying to understand and express some of the positive things that happened during the time frame since the last check-in, as well as any negative feelings or experiences that we had. Now, this sounds simple, but it's not. This actually takes a bunch of maturity and humility and empathy that frankly most of us were never taught. We all like to think that we're mature and humble until our partner actually says the words, "Hey, it really hurt when you didn't do that." And then watch how quickly we revert back to our immature ways of responding. "I didn't do that." "Oh, you do the same thing to me. Why are you making such a big deal about this?" I'm not saying that's you. I'm just saying it's probably you. Here's what I need us to remember during this exercise. We're supposed to love each other, right? This is your person. We can forget that during conflict. So it's important that before we even start the check-in, we look into each other's eyes and remind each other, "I love you. Let's do this as a team." The truth is, all the great relationships do some version of a check-in. All the great relationships that I've ever seen have some foundation of actual honesty. And honesty doesn't mean just sharing every feeling that pops into your head, but it does mean if I decide to share something that's on my heart, I know my partner cares and will respond in a loving way. We have to have a desire to have a relationship together where our partner feels safe to express concerns, hurts, desires, needs, or fears to us, and vice versa, right? A relationship simply can't survive without some level of honesty. Don't tell me you love someone, but you don't care enough to listen if they're hurt. Don't tell me you love someone, but you refuse to prioritize what they need to feel safe, close, or connected to you. That's not love. That's self-centeredness. That's narcissism. Now, it's understandable that we don't want a partner who constantly complains about what we're getting wrong and rarely appreciates us for what we're getting right. That's a reasonable concern, and I'm not advocating for that type of relationship. And hopefully you would agree that in a healthy relationship, we care about each other's inner world, right? We care about how they actually feel. I know so often for me, during a fight, even though I still love this person, my words or actions lead them to feeling hurt or abandoned or rejected by me. What I need to remind myself so often is that I can still love my wife and unintentionally dismiss her concerns. I can still love her and invalidate her and forget that her feelings make sense to her. I can still love her and have no capacity for showing up and holding space for her feelings and punish her vulnerability without realizing it. And on the flip side, she can love me and still be disrespectful or hurtful in a way that she talks to me. Of course, this goes both ways. I'm simply asking both of you to be more aware of the unintentional ways we hurt our partner. Because real love listens and cares and gets curious about their needs and desires. Real love sacrifices and serves. Real love is considerate. Real love places their needs on par with yours. Do you do that? Or do you tend to see their needs and desires as irrational? Because that's not love. If we actually want to love each other, we have to begin to strip away our blocks around conflict. What are the narratives that you slip into? They don't care about me. Nothing I do is going to be good enough. Do you start to see everything through a negative filter? What do you go into? Do you fight, yell, call names, escalate? Do you flight, appease, try to make the conflict go away, avoid it at all cost? Do you freeze? Do you shut down? Do you go silent because you're overwhelmed and you feel like nothing you say is going to make anything better, right? Let's be vulnerable with each other and explore and understand and be honest about what happens in our bodies and minds during conflict. Because if you want this relationship to be mutually fulfilling, which is in your best interest, then you both have to learn how to be a safe place for each other to be vulnerable and share your inner world and no one get punished for it. Deal? And I realize that for some of you, being vulnerable is very difficult. You might not even know where to start. But here's what I know. You won't have closeness without vulnerability. You won't have connection without vulnerability. And I get it, it's scary. That's true for me too, but it's also necessary. And you might push back against that theory. Just answer this question for me then. Why do all your partners complain that you're distant and disconnected? Why are all your partners constantly reaching for you and it seems so overwhelming and exhausting for you, right? I'm not here to debate which one of you is right or wrong. I'm here to point out to you the reason that might be happening is because your partner needs more connection and reassurance to feel safe in this relationship than you're comfortable giving them. That's not right or wrong. And also, maybe they feel so anxious and unsafe about this relationship because you're not consistent with them. You're not a reliable person for them emotionally. You're not actually being vulnerable. They don't know you. So the check-in helps with that because it serves multiple purposes. One, we're inviting and encouraging each other to actually be honest and vulnerable, which when expressed and received correctly, builds trust and safety, which leads to closeness. And two, we're keeping short accounts in this relationship. We're intentionally keeping the resentment at bay, which leads to less conflict building up and more closeness. And so often one of the questions I get is that we don't even know what we need or what we feel, right? I dare you to collaborate with each other on finding the deeper needs and feelings together. You don't know how much it would mean to your partner for you to say to them, it's okay that you don't know what you need. Let's figure it out together. Stop saying you want a fun, connected, passionate relationship, but you refuse to hear your partner when they have a concern or, God forbid, a complaint. Don't tell me you want a chill, conflict-free relationship, but every time your partner shares a feeling with you, you take it as an attack. That's not what leads to less conflict. That's what leads to bitterness and distance. Maybe not in you, but in all your partners. Not talking about things doesn't actually prevent the conflict. It simply makes it worse when it happens. Or one day they're simply just going to leave out of the blue, and you're going to be blindsided. But the warning signs were there all along. You never actually wanted them to be honest with you because of either your shame or ego or self-centeredness. Now, don't get me wrong. If you feel picked on, I'm about to pick on them in just a second because they are contributing to this dance as well. The point I'm trying to make is this. We need to see conflict and check-ins for what they really are, which are opportunities to connect with each other, opportunities to understand each other, to get curious about someone's inner world, to honor them, respect them, and serve them. Opportunities to build trust and safety and emotional connection with each other. It's not a mandatory business meeting that we begrudgingly have. It's a chance to remind our lover, I'm here. You can rely on me. Your pain matters to me. Your needs matter to me. I want you to be honest about what's going on in your heart. You mean more to me than any conflict we have. Have you ever told them that? Because you need to. That's the beginning of connection. Avoiding these conversations, avoiding the honesty, never learning the skills of expressing these things vulnerably or respectfully, setting boundaries, or never learning how to listen and validate. That's how relationships die in the conversations that never happen. And we had to learn that the hard way because we never had these conversations and we almost lost each other. And it took years to unintentionally strip away all the ways that we were unintentionally hurting each other. And we rebuilt this marriage from the ground up. But this time we were building on a solid foundation of actual love and honesty and trust. And that's my hope for you as well. I hope you can avoid the pain that we had to go through. And this can be your wake-up call that you need to do something differently. You're on a dangerous path. And if you've already hurt each other by getting stuck in years of fighting, I hope that this is a step towards rebuilding trust and repairing the pain in your relationship. So now that we know why we're doing this and why it's important, here are some common questions that we can ask during the check-in. You certainly don't have to use all of these, just pick which ones resonate with you or create your own as a couple. Number one, how have you felt this week in general? What were some highlights or lowlights for the week? We don't need to start necessarily with the relationship. We can just warm up by talking about how each of you are doing. What's the overall mood? Then we can move to the relationship. Number two, on a scale of 1 to 5, how close or connected have you felt to me this week? Can you think of anything that led to that number going up or down? Did you feel prioritized when it came to physical intimacy or affection? If so, what did you like best? If not, what would you like to see more of? Remember, this is our chance to express appreciation and gratitude for the areas that our partner is showing up. Every time your partner does something that you love, write it down or save it on your notes app on your phone so you can share it with them during the check-in. The point is, we might feel appreciative, but then we forget to write it down or tell them, but unexpressed gratitude is worthless, especially us men. We need to remember this. We think, I told her I loved her last week, I'll tell her if anything changes. No, don't just tell her that you love her, tell her why you love her and how it makes you feel. We need to be intentionally expressing gratitude and appreciation, not in our hearts, but out loud. And we need to be doing this during the week, not just at the check-in, because your relationship is going to drift towards one of two places. One, you'll stop thanking them for everything because they're simply meeting expectations at this point, and you've gotten complacent. Now, if they drop the ball on something, you're still quick to remind them of that, aren't you? But you're not actually thanking them anymore for all the other things that they are doing. Or you can choose to be intentionally grateful for everything that they do for you or the family. Which one do you think leads to more connection and less conflict? Number 4, do you feel like your emotional needs are being prioritized? If so, elaborate on how that made you feel. If not, what would you like to see added specifically? Let's try to think of their answers as information. No one is saying that you have to meet every one of your partner's needs, but you should at least know what their needs are, and then you can better assess whether that's something you're capable of meeting or not. There's a massive difference between avoiding those conversations versus saying, I hear you, I see you, I acknowledge that you need that. Unfortunately, I can't do that at this time, but here are the needs that I'm willing to meet. One of those is loving, the other is not. Number 5, how are we doing on the mutual chores? Do you feel like things are fair? If not, how can we make it more fair? Now, here's where it gets hard, because sometimes your partner's honesty is going to trigger you, right? Because you're going to disagree, or maybe they're going to slip up and say it the wrong way. They're going to say, well, you never do the dishes, or you always leave me with that. And you might find yourself just wanting to argue and defend yourself, right? Let's not forget, we're supposed to be on the same team. It's not about agreeing with everything. It's about allowing them to tell us the truth. Look for the feeling underneath. Look for the unmet need. What are they trying to say? They're trying to say, I don't feel like things are fair. And I need them to feel fair for me to feel close and connected to you. Even if we disagreed with their conclusion, we should still care that that's their experience, right? And we can still say, okay, I feel like I need to defend myself, but I want to hear you out. I might not agree with everything that you said, but I do want things to feel fair for both of us. So let's work that out as a team. Number 6, how was our communication this week? Did you feel like it was effective? Did you feel generally heard and understood if you brought something up? Did you feel comfortable bringing things up to me, or did it feel safer to just suppress? And if you felt like I wasn't a safe place, what could I do to help that? Number 7, what are 2 things that I can do this week specifically to help you feel valued, supported, and prioritized? How's your stress? Do you feel burdened? How can I support you and carry some of that weight with you? Do you feel like we're having fun together as a couple? How can we incorporate that back into our relationship again? Would it fill your love tank if I planned the next date night? How was our parenting this week? Did you feel like we were on the same team? If not, how can we work towards that? Another great question, how can we get on the same page with challenges that you see coming up in the next week or month? Let's work on those now so it doesn't hurt our connection when they come up, if they come up. What are some personal goals or projects that you're working on or you're excited about? And how can I support you? Now, while I can understand how daunting it might seem to sit there and listen to your partner talk about how they wish certain aspects of the relationship were better, or while it might seem overwhelming for you to even come up with some of these answers, let's just be honest. What is the alternative? Do we honestly want our partner to just bury their unmet needs? Do we want them to suppress their feelings and give off the impression that we don't care? And I know what your argument is. You're afraid if you gave your partner the green light to talk about their feelings or especially complain, that they're going to use that against you, right? You're afraid it's going to open Pandora's box and they're just going to unload on you about what a terrible partner you are. I can understand that fear. That makes sense. And I'm going to talk to them in just a minute specifically about that point. All I'm trying to get you to admit is that in a healthy relationship, there has to be some level of honesty and transparency from each other, right? Because I believe you that you care about them. I believe you that you love them. This is how we demonstrate that love, by inviting their honesty in a safe place, in a respectful and vulnerable way. The irony is, we think that we're protecting the relationship by not having these open conversations, right? Because having them might lead to more conflict. It might lead to them wanting to leave us or seeing us as bad. But refusing to be curious and talk about their inner world or dismissing their feelings when they do share them, that doesn't protect the relationship. It kills it. We are actively destroying the very thing we're working so hard to protect. The way we fix that is by trying something new, having some new experiences together, where instead of just fighting about the dishes or the bedroom or the kids, we're discussing the deeper feelings and needs underneath those. We're listening to each other. We're collaborating as a team again. I understand how difficult this is. This is high risk, high reward type of stuff, but it's possible. But it takes both of us coming together with the right mindset, reminding ourselves first, I want to be a safe place for them to be honest about what they need to continue feeling valued and prioritized in this relationship. I want to know that information, even if it makes me uncomfortable. Our connection and friendship and intimacy are worth my occasional discomfort, and I really do believe that this will actually lead to us feeling more in love, not less. That's what we need to remind ourselves of. Now, in theory, the check-in is a great idea, but it only works if you're both willing to follow the check-in rules. I'm holding you both accountable to these. First, you have to take turns speaking. I don't know how you want to do this, but you cannot be talking over each other. If you're interrupting each other, you've lost your way. The point is for one person to share, the other person listens and tries to understand, and then they open it back up to the other person. Do you have anything that you want to add? Or are you feeling anything as I said that? And then you listen and understand. Next, there's no blame or criticism or name calling or yelling or passive aggressiveness or shaming allowed. The check-in is a safe place, an intentionally safe place. Do not bring any toxicity into the safe place. That means when you bring something up, let's say you haven't felt very connected to them this week because they worked overtime or it was just a busy week for them, whatever the reason, we're not going to say, I feel like you don't care about me, or you're too lazy to even plan a date night. We never start with, you make me feel, or I feel like you. No, it's simply, you worked a lot this week from my point of view, and I'm feeling lonely. I would love it if we could prioritize some time with each other. It's our job to do the best we can, using our words to simply state the facts from our perspective and then talk about a feeling. Saying, you never do the dishes, or you're so lazy, that will never not upset your partner. There's simply no good reason to talk to someone that you love like that unless you simply don't know there's a better way. Why are you even having this conversation? Because you either want them to hear you or change something, right? Do you honestly believe that criticizing them is the best approach? If your argument is, yeah, but they won't take me seriously unless I yell or curse or criticize, I promise you, you've gone down a dangerous path, and the odds are you're still not going to be taken seriously, are you? The best chance at being heard is simply saying, hey, from my point of view, I did the majority of the dishes this week, and when I saw you walk by while I was doing the dishes, especially after I cooked the meal, the story I told myself is that you don't care about my time, that I don't matter to you. And I felt so hurt and lonely and frustrated, and it would really help me to feel close that whoever cooks doesn't have to do the dishes as well. Now, this is one of the most important things. So if you've tuned out because I got boring, totally understand, but I need you to jump back in for just a moment. Fixing all the mutual chores, dividing them up perfectly, getting on the same page with everything, even talking about being able to communicate perfectly and effectively together. It's not actually going to lead to more closeness. I mean, think about it. Everything that I just described could be achieved with a roommate. I can divide up chores with a roommate. I can have perfect communication and tell them everything and feel heard, but I won't necessarily feel an emotional bond with them, will I? That's why it's so important that we remember it's not just about completing the task. It's not just about learning how to communicate. It's about why we're doing those things. It's about the energy behind them. We're not doing these things to check a box. We're doing these things because we love each other. Remember her complaint about the dishes? It wasn't simply about the dishes. It was about her needing to know that she matters to you, that she can rely on you. She wants to know that you care about her. She wants to feel considered. We all do. That's why we're doing this. We're not learning how to communicate simply so conflict goes down. We're learning how to communicate because we love this person and we don't want to hurt them with our words. So that means first, we have to learn how to bring up complaints and feelings without criticism, blame, or shame. Talk about the facts. Use I statements. Don't use accusations. Don't blame. Don't say you never or you always. And for the love of God, mention a feeling. I feel like you're a jerk isn't a feeling. Lonely is a feeling. Overlooked, dismissed, disrespected, afraid, sad, hurt, worried, anxious, overwhelmed. Those are feelings. Now you're right. Just because you do all these things right doesn't guarantee that they're going to listen. We can't control their reaction, only our approach. You could do all this perfectly and say, hey, when this happened, this is the story I'm telling myself. I felt disconnected. This is what I need to feel close in the future. And someone will still say, well, you shouldn't feel that way. Quit blaming your feelings and needs on me. And you know what? Even though it's sad, that's actually really good information that they just gave us. They just told us, I'm not planning on showing up for you. I can't hold space for your pain. I will punish your vulnerability if you bring things up to me in the future. Now it's our job to decide what to do from there. With someone like this, connection and closeness are going to be impossible. You don't need me to tell you that. You already know that because you've experienced it. If you still want a relationship with them, counseling is your next step. At the moment, you don't have a partner who cares about what love and closeness demand from us. So they are on a path towards disconnection. And unless you get some help, you will eventually detach from them because that's what you do around unsafe people eventually. You give and you give until you've finally had enough and then you stop. So having said that, let's get back to the check-in. If you're the one who's excited about asking and answering these questions, you most likely have a partner who's not all that excited, are they? And even if they are on board, they probably find this stuff overwhelming and scary. And hopefully right now, they are using this as an opportunity to open up to you and be vulnerable and admit that right now. We never know how to be vulnerable, right? This is your chance. Pause the video, look them in the eyes and say, this stuff is scary and overwhelming to think about. I think I get scared because I worry that you'll need things that I'm not capable of. Or I think I feel overwhelmed because I'm worried if you knew the real me, maybe you wouldn't love me like you do now. That's being vulnerable and honest. And despite what you might think, 99% of the time, it's not going to lead to less connection with the right partner. The right partner will lean in and say, it makes sense why you'd be scared given your past. Thank you so much for trying something new with me. I feel more connected with you already. All I'm trying to say is be gentle with each other. Your partner most likely needs to warm up to this process, so don't overwhelm them right off the bat. Do this a few times. Let them see that you aren't trying to blame them and you're not out to get them. They are often terrified that their words will get used against them. They are terrified that you're going to pressure them for answers. They're terrified of opening up and being hurt. So many people are internal processors. That means they need a little time and space to actually think about this stuff. But then they get scared and overwhelmed, so they put it off and just forget about it, which only makes their partner feel abandoned. Like you don't care about doing this anymore, which means you don't care about the closeness in this relationship, which means you don't care about them. Do you see how quickly all of this can snowball? So don't do that. Don't put it off. Don't ignore it. And you, be surgical with your complaints. Be kind. Be compassionate. Be gentle. Tone matters. Body language matters. Words matter. Be careful. Remember, present this like it's information you're sharing about your heart. Maybe instead of getting heated and emotionally charged, let's just think about it more of like two robots sharing their needs. The human that you are in a relationship with needs you to call or text if you're going to be late. I feel scared and dismissed when you don't think about how your words and actions affect me. Beep boop, beep boop. That makes sense, my human partner. I will set a reminder on my phone. Thank you for sharing your feelings with me. Beep boop. See, isn't that better? Maybe you should just fight like robots from now on, okay? It'll save you a lot of time. Okay, so let's move on to how to receive a complaint or feeling. And make no mistake, I'm still talking to both of you because you're both going to be on the receiving end of some honesty that you weren't prepared for. And even if it's delivered in the most respectful way possible, we can all feel like we're being unfairly blamed or attacked sometimes, right? But just remember, we're trying to see this as information. The check-in is a safe place, so don't start interrupting or dismissing or gaslighting or getting defensive or counter-blaming or name-calling or escalating this conflict. That's not what the robots would do. That stuff sounds like, oh my gosh, are you crazy? Your feelings aren't my problem. I don't have time for this. You're making such a big deal about nothing. I was just kidding. You're acting like such a blank. We're not going to do that. Those are called not helpful at best and abuse at worst. And we're all capable of doing some of them unintentionally. So this is me telling you to stop. Now, this brings up an essential aspect of the whole process. It's okay if you get overwhelmed. It's okay if a conflict starts out of nowhere and all of a sudden you feel attacked and you're rolling your eyes and your partner's escalating because they feel unheard or unseen. This is where we have to establish another agreement for the check-in process. When we lose our way, we have to stop. Maybe we have a safe word. Maybe one of us has the awareness to stop the argument and say, hey, I think we got off track. We're getting heated. Let's take 30 minutes and calm down and come back and pick this up, or pick it up tomorrow if it's already late. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually very mature. It feels like we need to stay and fight, right? And yes, one partner is probably going to feel more disconnected than the other and have a strong urge to continue fighting so we can get back to a place of connection. But that's actually counterproductive. You're actually pushing your partner farther away by pressuring them and demanding that they stay engaged when they're either triggered or flooded or heated. They aren't thinking with the thinking part of their brain, if you get what I mean. And you're probably not either. So yes, you have to take a break. But for the partner who is so glad that they're getting out of this conflict, please tell your partner, hey, we're breaking for 30 minutes or for the night, but I bet you're feeling pretty anxious or disconnected. And I just need you to know I really do care about this. And we're good. I promise that we'll come back to this when we're both in a better headspace. Do whatever you can to help them feel reassured that you're still committed to this process and you still believe in this relationship and that you care about their anxiety or disconnection. That will go a long way. And then when the 30 minutes is up, you need to initiate. Okay, but if both of you can stay regulated during the check-in, if someone shares their feelings or hurts or needs in a vulnerable and respectful way, here's what I need you to remember. Be curious. Lead with curiosity. Don't just sit there with a blank stare. That's not actually listening. Be engaged and interested. The person you love is giving you information on how to connect with them. Seek to understand. Nod a little bit. It might feel like they're blaming or attacking you, but that's not always what's happening. If you actually trust your partner, then constructive feedback is not your enemy, it's your friend. Sometimes your partner is simply saying, I feel disconnected from you, but you're hearing them say, you're a bad partner, and unless you convince me that you're not, this relationship is over. That's why you're so quick to defend and get upset. But that's not actually what they said. I'm telling them to get rid of the criticism and the insults and the yelling and the name calling. It's your job to actually hear what they are saying and stay present and hold space, lead with curiosity, and try to understand. Don't react, just listen. Explore their perspective. Summarize the points they're making. So it sounds like when this happened, it led you to feeling pretty overlooked or dismissed. Would you say that's right? Then validate those experiences and feelings once you understand them. I can see why you felt that way. That makes sense. I'm not saying everything they say is always going to be true. I'm saying if you actually trust them, then the wise thing to do is not to immediately invalidate or dismiss them as crazy or stupid. The wise thing to do is to ask yourself, is there any truth to what they're saying? Can I learn anything from this? Isn't that what we would want them to do if you were honest with them? Let's follow that same advice. Curiosity sounds like this. What happened that led you to feel that way? What meaning did you give that behavior of mine? What do you wish would have happened differently? What do you need to repair this and feel heard and understood and reconnected? Remember, I'm not asking you to validate their accusations or blame. I'm not saying you need to agree with them if they called you lazy. I'm telling them to lead with respect and vulnerability and actual feelings. But if they did that, you need to seek to understand what led them to feel that way and then come to a place where you can say to them, I get it. This happened. This is the meaning you gave that. You felt this. That makes sense. Thank you for telling me that. And at the very least, our partner should feel heard and understood. Now we can move towards any repair. We repair by taking accountability. I'm not saying apologize for things you didn't do. I'm saying apologize for things you know you could have done better. That looks like this. I'm so sorry. It makes sense why you felt that way. And I care about how my words and actions affect you. It certainly wasn't my intention to hurt you, but I can see how I did, and I'm sorry. In the future, this is what I'm going to do differently to help that not happen again. Remember, the best apology is changed behavior. You wouldn't want them apologizing for things and then continuing to do them without considering you. We're not going to do that either. Get rid of this notion that apologizing means that you're submissive and they're dominant or something. Far too often we get stuck in these relationships where people are obsessed with being right and never apologizing for anything because it would make them look weak. You want to know the truth? If you actually want that fun, passionate, intimate, connected relationship, get really good at apologizing and repairing with each other because you both hurt each other far more than you realize. And if you actually get proactive and intentional about exploring and understanding and validating and repairing any of that hurt, that's what leads to the relationship you both actually want. Refusing to apologize isn't strength, it's weakness. Refusing to talk about your feelings or needs and dismissing your partners, that's not strength, that's weakness. Avoiding the problems and sticking our head in the sand thinking they might go away with time, that never works. You should both be having these mini sessions all the time, mini check-ins. You notice some disconnection, you address it, you explore your partner's feelings, you reassure them that they matter, that you're glad that they can be honest with you. You say a little apology for any unintentional hurt, you repair, they feel connected again. That's how you have the fun, passionate, close relationship. And to the people who say, well, that sounds like a lot of work, you're absolutely right. Relationships probably aren't for you. Go find someone who wants to be in a situationship where there's no responsibility, right? Because if you actually want a real relationship, if you want an actual partnership, and especially if you want a marriage, this is the work required for it to survive. This isn't going above and beyond. This is bare minimum. You want a great relationship? It's going to require great things from you, starting with humility and mutual respect and effective communication and self-regulation and self-reflection. I have to get to the point where I'm able to recognize that I'm getting triggered. I'm not a passive participant in my relationship. I'm paying attention. I'm curious. Why did I respond like that? What was I actually feeling? What was the unmet need? Why did I feel the need to protect myself? This is valuable information, and the check-in is one of the best ways we practice this. So, for the few of you who made it to the end of this long rant, please just remember, you're on the same team. The moment you don't feel like you're on the same team, stop and say that. Hey, I don't feel like we're on the same team here. And the other person needs to use their tools of listening and exploring and understanding and validating and taking accountability for their side of the street. This is how you keep conflict at bay, by practicing how to navigate them in a healthy, respectful way. And this is how you keep your emotional bonds strong, by prioritizing each other in the ways you both feel valued and desired and loved most. It's not about meeting all your partner's needs. Of course, that would feel overwhelming. My question is, are you actively trying to meet the ones that you can? Are you prioritizing those? Because that's a great place to start. But first, you have to actually be curious about what those needs even are. So keep practicing. Keep intentionally learning how to do this stuff better. It's worthwhile work, and we're all in the same boat together. Keep trying to proactively fill each other's love tanks. Remember to look each other in the eyes as much as you're comfortable with. There's something so intimate about looking into your lover's eyes when you have to be vulnerable, and them looking right back and saying, you're safe here. Explore your partner's armor. It's there for a reason. They built up those walls years ago because they didn't feel loved and valued. Help them feel safe to take those bricks down one at a time. But remember, it's not your job to heal or fix or save them. We can both heal in this relationship, but only if we're both participating in our own healing, right? The way we heal is by taking a brick down, handing it to our partner, and seeing if they can hold it without hurting us with it. Then we should want to continue taking those bricks down from our wall. The more interactions that we have together, where we both feel like this person actually cares to understand me and prioritize me and love me. This person cares about my deeper needs and feelings. That's what builds trust and intimacy and keeps the conflict at bay. So thank you so much for listening. I know it was long. Keep checking in with each other, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.